What is up, homies? Welcome to a discussion about a movie that we just witnessed and did not cry our eyes out. My Neighbor Totoro. It was our first time watching this movie. If you have not seen this movie or you've seen it and you're interested in watching along with us, check out our Patreon link down in the description below. We did an entire uncut reaction. You can also go to the Heroes Reforged channel and check out our cut down reaction. But as you know, as Hector likes to say, the Patreon, that's the after party, baby. That's where you want to go party.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really excited that we're going to be doing a little bit of a discussion about some of the stuff that we're watching, some of the new things that we're discovering. I mentioned it in the other video that I've only seen Kiki's Delivery Service, so this is only the second film in the Studio Ghibli collection that I've seen. So coming to it fresh, more or less, is really great.
Yeah. Do you think I mean, I'm down to rewatch Kiki's with you guys, but right now, do you feel like you prefer one over the other, My Neighbor Totoro or Kiki's Delivery Service? What do you think?
That's a really, really, really good question. And I think it honestly has to do, and it just that feeling, I think there was like some things I was just able to connect with more that made it feel a little bit more like my childhood in some ways.
If I can, I think straight up Kiki's Delivery Service is more European influenced, and I think it's supposed to be based on like Italy or Spain or some kind of European,
country,
region. Yeah. You know what I'm really excited about? I almost forgot because it's been a minute. Whenever we watch stuff together, and this year we've been doing it with the Marvel movies we were watching and some DC stuff or whatever. Augustine on Letterboxd. Augustine, I'm excited for you to start a studio.
I'm doing it
Ghibli.
right now.
Bro, me too. Me too.
We're all gonna have one now. This is, well, again, for anybody who's listening or anybody who's watching, we tend to, like Hector was saying, we tend to stay not in a box, but we kind of tend to lean towards things that, are kind of within our wheelhouse. Sure. So I think that's the fun thing about us venturing out and doing stuff that we've never watched before, or some of us have only seen, is that I think that it's going to offer, well, one, it's going to offer unique perspective because most people who have seen these movies have seen them over the course of, maybe 20, 30 years, however long these movies have been out, or they experienced them as kids. For us, we're coming into it in our mid-30s. For a lot of these movies, adults in our mid-30s, and we kind of don't know what to expect. And for me, for this film, I'm sure for people who watch, they got to see sort of the potential trauma that we thought we were going to witness in this movie. And even mentioning the fact, that we maybe come into it from a different perspective because sometimes, not always, and it's not just American films, it's other international films too, that you almost expecting something dreadful to happen, something bad. The bad news is coming, and this is where the movie kind of turns, and then there needs to be some sort of resolve by the end of it. But this movie, it kind of gives you that breadcrumb, and you start to project all of your feelings onto it, and then all of a sudden the movie's like, no, we're still lighthearted, and we're still about exploration and fun and fantasy, and we're still having a good time, and yes, we threw a little something at you, but at the end of it, it's all good, it's all happiness, and it's all fine, which, some
Mom
people might say like,
that's all.
I feel like a cynical person would say like, well, that's just too whimsical and too lighthearted. And I'm like, you know what? You need that in life, man. You need a little bit of a break from the dread of the world sometimes.
Yeah.
I think, Adam, that it's not crazy to say, like you were saying, that this movie gives you that breadcrumb. And I think this movie sets it up so that you feel the emotions of Satsuki and Mei, because they're little kids, and little kids have these big emotions. And the movie just perfectly sets that up to where we're right there in their lives. We're basically seeing it through their eyes, so that when they don't understand what's happening, and we might have an understanding of what's happening, they react in this big emotional way. And I think the movie not explicitly like laying things out for us, right? Especially with the telegram from the hospital. All of our movie brains went, oh no.
Bad news.
We know where this is going.
Yeah.
And I think that the movie wants you to think that, and I think that the movie wants you to feel for these two little girls. And just the fact that the ending is happy, and it's even funny that like the mom was like, I'm sorry, I don't know why the hospital sent a telegram. I didn't mean to freak you guys out. Like, it's almost comical at like the movie's almost making fun at her, pointing to the fact that like, haha, we got you. It's not, sometimes in life it's not as bad or whatever. But I still think that those emotions are so big and they're so real. It doesn't like that happy ending doesn't take away from, dude, I know we were on the verge of tears. I know we were on the verge of tears when Mei starts crying, when she gets lost, when, when you realize that she's running to the hospital.
Is it not her shoe? Oh my God.
That moment, did another little girl drown? Whose shoe is it? We don't know.
Kids lose sandals all the time, though. Kids lose shoes
Yeah,
all
but
the time. They do.
I feel like this movie too kind of lived up to what I thought it was going to be. Like
Yeah.
Augustine pointed out, this is the mascot of this animation studio, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a movie, no offense, because I love them, starring Mickey Mouse that has been deserving of like the entire Disney brand. No, Disney's movies are not Mickey Mouse, and there's other things and they're better. But like this can still take that character Totoro, who is so, it's just such a perfect character design, but the movie still lives up to, for years, what I knew to be one of the best Studio Ghibli films, right?
Mhm.
So just really, really impressive. I mean,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the other thing I kind of appreciate about the movie is, the movie's called My Neighbor Totoro, but Totoro's not in the movie that much.
No.
Like really
no.
only comes in,
Yeah.
like that whole element, that whole like fantasy, whimsical sort of element of, the forest and nature and all that sort of stuff. It's really woven into like the kid's story. It's about those kids. And going into it, I didn't really know what to expect. Like I was expecting that once we meet Totoro, there was going to be a really heavy sort of emphasis on the relationship. But really, Totoro is a character who just kind of makes his way through the story whenever he's sort of needed. But and I like that because I think it's smart because the movie is then sort of not forced, but it really is allowed to just live in those moments and focus on the siblings, focus on the family dynamics, focus on the emotion of what the characters are going through. And I was just so surprised by that because it, again, wasn't something, like you guys were pointing out the DVD cover. You see that, you think that the whole movie is an adventure with that character.
Right.
And
it's really not. It's about the sister's adventure.
I think we're also Disney brainified used to like, oh, Totoro's going to be a character like, Robin Williams, the genie, or Aquafina's, Last Dragon character in Raya and the Last Dragon. This like talking animal sidekick character that's this bigger portion of the film. And you're right. It boils down to Totoro and these little characters. They're forest spirits, and they have that presence in the story, but it is not, I think, what we're used to. Yeah, it's just refreshing. Fun watching movies like this.
I was trying to do some research on whose sandal was floating in the water. We need to know whose sandal was floating in the water.
There's probably a movie about it.
I said,
it's the little girl from Spirited Away.
Yeah, it's a little girl from
Spirited Away. Different movie.
I have a deep appreciation for movies like this because someone had the bravery to. Right now, it feels brave to watch a movie like this. Not necessarily like heroic or whatever, but like to create a lighthearted jaunt through the experience of something that a child is going to remember forever. That's not traumatic, or that's not just like things that we're used to, like like the death of a parent, or like somebody like May didn't die, or like I think American and Western cinema is so focused as death being like the ultimate bad thing that can happen to you. And this movie, while kind of tiptoeing around the fact that their mom was sick, we still felt a lot of emotion around these characters without having to go to that point of like, oh my God, like this happened and that's going to be the thing you remember forever. Where like, I remember things from my childhood that felt intense to me that probably weren't, but I will still remember them forever. And I feel like these are the kind of experiences that those kids are living through that we really get to see and experience. And that's really unique because there's not a lot of movies that'll do this. Like imagine if somebody, a no-name director, came to a big studio and said, I need a budget to make this movie now in 2023. Nobody's going to give them that budget.
No,
like nobody's going to greenlight that movie, right?
Yeah.
And so like for somebody to come out with a movie like this, I think it's really cool. I think it's a testament to what good storytelling can be, because it just felt good all the way around. And it wasn't just the storytelling. It was a testament to the animators. It was a testament to, the character designers. It was a testament to the directing and the background artists and the lighting, and just like everything in this movie was so well thought out and put together. And also the music too, that like it just gives you this vibe that like everything's gonna be okay, guys. We're just gonna have a good time. These kids are gonna be okay, and we're just gonna see how they experience life. And I think that's really sure the shining point of this movie.
I agree. I love watching these movies too. I love watching them dubbed at first because I would absolutely watch this again in Japanese.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Not when we're doing a reaction, but like
Yeah.
to then hear that voice cast and those performances, I'm sure they're amazing. But also shout out to the direction and the English voice cast for this that came out in 2004 or whatever. The Fannings crush it. They're adorable.
Oh, so
they did a
good.
great
Absolutely.
job. It reminds me of Billy Bob Thornton has a role in Princess Mononoke that I think he's like really good with the dubbing of a character. I think he's really good at. Like I said, Michael Keaton in Porco Rosso. I even saw one from a few years ago. I think Daisy Ridley did one coming off of Force Awakens, and I thought she did a great job. So I really appreciate a good dubbing voice track performance. And and these are some of the best, man. I'm excited to watch more of these with you guys. This is cool.
I think Ghibli does a good job of attracting a lot of good voice talent for their movies. They do tend to get celebrities, and I know the argument behind like celebrities doing voiceover and things like that. But to get a celebrity to do a international movie like this, that's not maybe before they heard about the movie or whatever, to watch it and say, "Oh, I want to be a part of this because I recognize the masterpiece that this is." I think that's a huge step, you know? I think that's big for people to recognize that these movies are good and I want to be a part of it. And for these actors to have jumped on, quote unquote, early on, even though it wasn't super early on, like they didn't jump on in 88, but to see something like this and recognize that like this is good and I need to give this voice acting my all. I think that's cool. And I think only a studio like Ghibli can do something like that because they've earned it through all of their masterpieces that they've created, because everything's great that they do.
One thing I do want to circle back on that you brought up, Augustine, that I think is a really good point. You know, I was thinking about as we were watching it, if this movie were to be made in 2023 by an American studio, the first thing that I thought of was they would overcomplicate the plot. They would try too hard to explain too much. I think the thing that I think makes the movie so special is, as kids, when there are maybe not the best scenarios happening in your life, parents tend to kind of shield you from that. Mom's sick. You don't know the extent of how sick mom is because you're a kid. And you don't necessarily need to sort of like be caught up in that and be so worried about that. Like, mom's sick. We're doing everything we can to make sure that she's okay. And as soon as she can come home, she'll come home. And then kids get to just like live on their life. Whereas sometimes I feel like when stories are adapted or they're made, and of course in real life, that's also the case sometimes where kids are brought into early on into like, it's a serious situation. Here's what's happening. But it is nice that to have a project or a movie like this, where it's an example of, well, kids can still be kids. And, you know, if there are tough things going on in their life, they should still be allowed to be kids and not be burdened with everything else that's happening. So, and I think that's a testament to the dad and how he is just so lighthearted and trying to, you know, and the movie never really shows you this, but if he's putting up a front because he's in the background stressed about what's happening, whether it's with work or with mom or whatever, he's putting on a performance that is like top notch, top tier to just make the kids feel as normal as possible.
It was kind of mind blowing to watch the movie with you guys, and we didn't know the parental situation 20 minutes into the movie. On our way to the hospital to see mom. And I remember thinking the same thing. I was like, an American film would never. I don't know if it's culturally the storytelling that we're used to that is different in Japan, or if it is that kind of bravery that you guys are discussing, the bravery to let things just have a nice, slower pace that it feels like, especially with animated films, not just dramas made by American studios and whatever, but to do that in animation. It costs money to have a moment to draw where the girls look into the river, wow, fish, wow, and then they keep going. That kind of pacing is so not trusted with an animated film that the recent animated movies that I think we were blown away by, your Spider-Verses and, you know, whatever, those still have a real hyperactive quality to them, you can argue. They definitely do not slow down with these characters and the storytelling and the pace and everything. So yeah, it was pretty incredible to see. And then Adam, you're talking about how like we don't know everything, and this movie doesn't over explain things. It just kind of lets you know things little by little by little. And we're sitting here kind of wrapped up in the wonderment of it all, and the incredible like magic and wonder and whimsy, while the dad maybe told us a little bit about forest spirits, little of this, little of that, and then we see something happen, and we're just three men in our 30s going like, they're jumping over the acorns. Oh, they're gonna make the acorns grow. That's so impressive.
Yeah.
That all of our cynicism kind of went away, and we're like just experiencing this movie, just like, wow, what is going on? And I'm sure that there are things in the film, in the story, Japanese people have a different context to that they might recognize, because this is probably based on fables, myths, urban legends, storytelling in Japan. We don't have that context, right? It would be like if I made a movie about the chupacabra and showed it to a Japanese person, they might not know what that is. But even still, the way that this story is presented, I think it is so universal, so accessible. I just fell in love with the relationship between the two sisters, because I was like, 10-year-old kid, 4-year-old little sibling copying everything. We've all been there. We know that experience. It's great. We're either one of those siblings. We're one of the two. It was just like Sandlot, how that kid was like, or whatever he was called. Like he would just repeat everything his brother said,
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
It was amazing. Not really, really good. It was just an amazing movie. And, between that and Kiki's Delivery Service, so far they're 2 for 2 for me. So I can't wait for us to dive into more movies from Studio Ghibli, and not even Studio Ghibli, just more stuff, more international titles, period, whether they're animated or live action.
Yeah. Adam, Akira is gonna fuck you up, dude. It's awesome. Dude. I cannot wait. It's gonna.
I'm really actually glad we started with this, and then
full disclosure, we were gonna do Akira tonight, and we we're kind of looking up, trying to get the right sort of version that we wanted to find, and it was a little tricky, and that movie's 2 hours with a little extra change, and it would have fucked us up. So it's
So I hope you're all excited because we're going to be watching that movie. It's one of the many films that we'll be watching in the meantime. And this was a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we watched this one. And I know that people in the comments are probably going to have a bazillion and a half suggestions.
Bring it.
Please drop them in the comments below. Drop them on Discord. Let us know on social media as well if you have any other movies that you would like us to potentially check out. We have a really long list, but we'll take anything and everything into consideration from the community.
It does feel like we have a massive scroll and we just barely went like one movie out of a million. I made a joke while watching the movie that I'm like, man, the strike, I hope it keeps going so we can keep watching these movies. Obviously a joke. I want the strike to be resolved ASAP so that people can get respected and treated the way they deserve to be treated and paid for what they deserve to be paid for. But I think even when things go back to normal, so to speak, I think we should keep doing these movies.
I think so. I think we really should.
So worth it. It's so worth it.
This is like a little honey hole we haven't tapped into at all.
Yeah. Just add it to the rotation. Rotation.
Absolutely. But if you're listening to the podcast, check out the YouTube channel. We're obviously going to have a cut down on there on the Heroes Reforged channel. Or if you want to see the entire uncut reaction, check out our Patreon. That'll be on there as well. And let us know. Let us know what your thoughts are on the movie if you've never seen it before and you're watching it for the first time with us.
It's so funny, dudes, because I realize the way we sort of talked about putting this out, this podcast may come out before our reaction on Patreon or YouTube. People might not understand how much we went through the emotional ringer with this movie. And they're going to be like, what? I Never Totoro. Guys, you're going to want to see our reaction to it. You're going to want to see it uncut.
Absolutely.
We barely made it through this movie.
Western cinema trauma.
We're so dumb. Like our reactions are dumb, and you're gonna love them because we expecting the worst every frame. We were expecting
just
so
pretty much
emotional damage. Every scene, every scene.
Absolutely.
Sequence. Yeah.
But of course, subscribe. Check out all the other videos that we've been making. Check out the uncut reaction for this movie and all the other movies we'll be watching on Patreon. See you guys in the next episode. Bye.